the Middle East today, President Trump has concluded his historic visit to Israel and has now departed for Egypt, where he is to attend the summit at Sharm el-Sheikh along with other world leaders. The summit primarily focuses on securing and implementing the multi-phase peace agreement between Israel and Hamas. One of the key areas to be discussed is Gaza's future governance, as associates close to Hamas have already stated that Hamas would not be part of the transition phase of the governance. There have been talks that former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair is to play a key role in the proposed Board of Peace for Gaza. It is significant to see what the summit, which is co-chaired by President Trump and Egypt's Al-Sisi, decides regarding the disarming of Hamas and the deployment of multinational security forces in Gaza. Now for this discussion, we're joined by John Rossomando. He is a geopolitical analyst and president of Viking Research Associates, joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you, John, for joining us again. Good to see you. John,
thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, how significant is this President Trump's role in brokering recent Israel-Hamas ceasefire?
Well, if it were not for President Trump, I do not think that we would be having this ceasefire, because he's the only person who's been able to bring the parties together to have any kind of discussion. I think that the president has accomplished what no one thought he could by bringing all the parties together and leaving Hamas as the party that could potentially be the fly in the ointment.
And how do you see his approach or his administration's approach, comparing it to past administrations like Joe Biden and Obama?
Well, the thing about President Trump is that he's very decisive. He is someone who sets the parameters and sticks with them. The president also believes in personal diplomacy, so he gets together with the people who make the decisions and works to build consensus regardless of who is involved.
Thank you, John, for sharing that. Now we also welcome Mohammed Osman. He's an international relations specialist, joins us live from Cairo. Thank you, Mohammed, for joining us again. Good to see you. Would like to see your perspective on how President Trump's role in this brokering the ceasefire, how significant is U.S.'s role here?
Thank you for having me, Suma. Indeed, of course, the American role in reaching this ceasefire is central. It cannot be ignored. We cannot underestimate or underplay the significance and the leading role the United States has taken in achieving this cessation of hostilities in Gaza and a clear roadmap towards a permanent cessation of hostilities. However, of course, as we all know, the United States was not on its own in this effort. If anything, the United States position was very unbalanced throughout this war, whether under Biden or under Trump. They were blindly biased towards the Israeli viewpoint, and even they were implicated in many of the Israeli crimes against humanity and crimes of genocide and systematic mass murder and starvation in Gaza. They were an integral part of that, and we should never forget what the Americans have done in this regard. And so far, however, right now, because of the consultation and the very constructive dialogue President Trump had with the United States, other key partners in the region.
Mohammed, please hold on. I just want to acknowledge the visuals that are live that we are showing now. President Trump has landed in Egypt, and he is getting off of his plane. As you can see, he has landed in Egypt, Sharm el-Sheikh, and now he is being greeted by the delegation there, Sisi. Now we go back to our discussion. Mohammed, if you could continue your answer. Thank you for holding.
President of Egypt, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Both leaders, since Trump's first term in office, have mutual respect for one another. They enjoy a good relationship, and it actually, during the first Trump term or the first Trump administration between 2017 and 2020, the relationship between Egypt and the United States witnessed a thaw and warmed up one again after cooling down during the Obama years and cooling down once again during the Biden years. And they remained cool, unfortunately, under President Trump, because at the beginning of his tenure as president, he supported and advocated the idea of the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians out of the Gaza Strip. And of course, this is something that was not acceptable to the entirety of the Arab world, and especially Egypt. So since what was being proposed was the displacement of the Palestinians into Egyptian territory. And Egypt, of course, said that this would mean that this might end even the peace between Egypt and Israel. So now this is behind us. President Trump has readjusted his stance from the war in Gaza. Now he is much more interested in a more balanced approach to achieve a sustainable peace. He has forced the Israelis to accept this agreement against their own will. And so far, the first phase of the agreement has succeeded, with the exchange of the detainees and the hostages being accomplished today, the living ones at least, and also with the withdrawal of the Israeli army a couple of days back to the yellow line inside the Gaza Strip, evacuating a significant portion of the Gaza Strip. And now, of course, we are on the precipice of the Sharm el-Sheikh peace conference, which is supposed to dawn or give the international cover needed for the Trump plan to be applied, albeit, of course, with certain modifications, as certain provisions need to be revisited. And today, even President Trump hinted during his visit to Israel and aboard Air Force One that certain provisions of the agreement, especially with regards to post-war governance in Gaza, might be revisited. So now I think there will be a very constructive discussion between President Sisi, President Trump, and many of the world leaders who are attending the Sharm el-Sheikh summit, including President Macron of France, Prime Minister Starmer of Britain, Chancellor Merz of Germany, Erdogan, the Turkish president, many Arab leaders, a foreign minister of India, for example, and many other senior officials from all around the world, including senior UN officials. So now it's in the works. There is an urge or a will, a common will and a common goal between all the participants to reach a common understanding for the effective implementation of the second phase of the agreement. And most importantly, of course, President Mahmoud Abbas of the State of Palestine also is in attendance and is in Sharm el-Sheikh as well, which means that the Palestinian state, which has been recognized by over 159 countries all around the world, has been invited as an equal on par with the other states who are attending this landmark peace summit. I am very optimistic about the possible outcomes, Asuma, and I hope that today they will find certain frameworks to apply the peace plan in a just manner that will take into account the interests of all parties, including the interests of the Palestinians.
Yes, indeed. We will be eyeing that all in this channel. Thank you, Osman, for sharing that. And now I would like to take John's take on this. John, do you think that US's role in this, this particularly Gaza and Israel, moving forward, do you think Arab countries will be able to trust US again for, as you know, previously there's some controversial policies, like Osman mentioned, that US's administrations did, such as, you know, moving the embassy to Jerusalem and some others as well. So do you think US will be able to gain the trust back from these Arab countries?
Well, I think the United States has the trust of a lot of the Arab countries. Particularly look at President Trump's effort to shore up relations with Qatar following the Israeli bombing of Doha. I think that we have done more to try to bring both sides together. I mean, I don't think that we would be having this conference if the U.S. had such horrible relations with its partners. I understand the Egyptian concern about the Palestinians in their territory, considering that the past decade or so Hamas was involved in the uprising in the Sinai. So there's a lot of complications, but I think the one thing that we all have to agree upon is there's a need for a third-party force in Gaza of Arab and other nations to provide security for everyone involved, provide security for the Gazans, disarm Hamas, and allow for security for Israel, so that Israel doesn't feel a need.
Thank you, John and Mohammed Osman, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic now. Now, international leaders have welcomed the release of Israeli hostages by Hamas as a significant step towards peace in Gaza and the region. French President Emmanuel Macron has said that the release of the hostages makes peace possible for Israel and Gaza and the wider region, expressing joy alongside families and the Israeli people. European diplomacy chief Kaja Kallas has highlighted U.S. President Donald Trump's role in achieving this crucial milestone towards peace. China has also welcomed the hostages release, urging stability in the region, while United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for all sides to build on this momentum to end this conflict. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has urged President Donald Trump to use his influence to pressure Russia to end the war with Ukraine, following the U.S.-brokered ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas conflict. Now we go back to our guest discussion with Mohammed Osman. He's an international relations specialist, and John Rosomondo. He's the president of Viking Research Associates and geopolitical analyst, joins us live from Washington, D.C. First, Osman, I would like to take your take. Again, the same question as I asked earlier to John. Will Arab countries be able to trust U.S. again? And can U.S. gain the trust back? And also noting that Benjamin Netanyahu might not be welcomed in Sharm el-Sheikh to attend this conference, to attend the summit, sorry.
I will begin with what you just alluded to. Minister Netanyahu was not invited. This is not true. President Trump, the Americans today requested that that Netanyahu be invited. And upon the recommendation and the request of the Americans, the Egyptian president extended an invitation to the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. And what did Netanyahu do? He said that he rejected the invitation, said that he cannot come because of the Sukkot holiday, a Jewish holiday that takes for about a week or something. Such a silly excuse not to come. And the real reason Netanyahu did not come is because he has no interest in maintaining a durable peace in the Middle East. President Trump is forcing the Israelis to take this deal. We all have to understand that. If it was up to Netanyahu and his clique of right-wing fanatics who are running Israel, they would completely obliterate this agreement immediately and resume the war of annihilation and genocide. I think that Israel's motives behind this war go way beyond the idea of security guarantees or security concerns. It actually concerns the definitive liquidation of the Palestinian state and the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians out of what remains of historical Palestine, basically the West Bank and Gaza. However, the Americans seem not to be on board with this, and this is something that is good. And it does serve, which brings me to the first part of your question, it does serve to deepen the trust between the Arab stakeholders and the United States. The United States has a strategic relationship, decades-old strategic relationship with a multitude of Arab countries and several heavyweight regional Arab and Islamic powers. Countries like the United States, countries like Egypt, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, all of these, Qatar, very, very influential countries that have a very, very huge influence in not only in the Arab world, but in the Arab world, the Middle East, the wider Islamic world, and even the global South. So when the United States takes advantage of its deep or struggles to maintain these deep partnerships and alliances, it has to do so by taking into account the interests and the visions and the opinions of those powers. And I think that the United States is doing just that now, being more balanced. Of course, they are much more biased towards the Israeli side. However, now they are way more balanced. At least now we can speak about a common agenda, an agenda of peace, a cessation of hostilities, the withdrawal of the Israeli army from Gaza, and at the same time the disarmament of Hamas and the replacement of Hamas's government with a technocratic Palestinian government. And I think it should be connected with or its reference point should be the Palestinian Authority, which rules parts of the West Bank, and also it is the legitimate government of Palestine and the sole representative of the Palestinian people that is recognized by the international community. So I think there are positive steps that are being taken along the way. There are disagreements between the Arabs and the United States with regards to the idea of placing Gaza under some sort of international trusteeship or a board of peace or whatever President Trump was proposing. However, President Trump did say that he is willing to revisit such propositions and discuss other alternatives, or maybe attempting to blend both propositions. All of these are possible outcomes of the talks today and moving forward with even future talks. I think that today's conference in Sharm el-Sheikh will be a launching point for a very solid dialogue with regards to the continuation of the calm in Gaza and the cessation of hostilities in Gaza, and will actually discuss the post-war governance and the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip, and of course the withdrawal of the Israeli army from the entirety of the Gaza Strip. These are things that should be achieved by the Trump agreement or the Trump proposal, which was promulgated in Sharm el-Sheikh, and it will carry a lot of weight with the presence of so many world leaders and regional leaders who will all sign off the agreement and endorse it, so it might gain international legitimacy, including the United Nations. The Egypt did propose that this agreement should be adopted by a UN Security Council, and I think if this happens, it will further its international and legal legitimacy, and it will give Israel much less leeway or space to weasel out of any commitments or not comply with the provisions and its obligations under this agreement, Asuma.
Yes, Osman, thank you for enlightening us and sharing that. And John, what do you think, moving on, alongside all the leaders that Osman has mentioned, what will be the role of Europe in particular for this ceasefire to hold on and the peace in this particular region, Gaza and Israel?
Well, I mean, the Europeans are, foremost behind, supporting, the imposition of the ceasefire. But if I could add something, I think that my colleague here misunderstands the Israeli system. The reason that Netanyahu and people like him have been able to win in Israeli parliamentary elections is the fear of Hamas, the fear of lack of security. Providing security guarantees could help to embolden the parties in Israel that are opposed to Netanyahu. I mean, there was a big demonstration against Netanyahu in Tel Aviv days ago. So, that's the one thing that Netanyahu has used since '96 is the fear of, terrorist activities, the fear of Hamas. If we could work to remove that, then maybe we can have a more sensible government in Jerusalem.
Thank you to both our guests for sharing that. I would like to address the live visuals that are coming in from Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. The leaders have gathered and the leaders are ready to welcome President Trump. We see that President Trump is now entering the building hosted by President Sisi of Egypt, and all the delegations getting inside of the building as the summit is supposed to take place soon. Now we go back to our news here. Gazan detainees have arrived in Khan Yunis after being released by Israeli authorities as part of the prisoner hostage swap deal. Some of the released prisoners have expressed feelings of joy, but also noted that the happiness was tempered by the fact that many Palestinians remain in Israeli jails. Others arriving in Ramallah, West Bank, have also reflected mixed emotions as they celebrated their release while acknowledging the ongoing suffering of those still imprisoned. Let's listen in to some of the released Palestinian prisoners.
طبعا نكلوا فينا الكلبشات صار لهم 24 ساعه في ايدينا محزوكات على الاخر، ممنوع نقوم على الحمامات، قاعدين على الصرار وعلى البيش كرس، كل شوي يجي واحد يضربونا على رؤوسنا ويضربونا على ايدينا ويضربونا على جرينا بالعصي وبالهروات، ما خلوا اسلوب يعني لاخر لحظه، حاولوا ينزعوا الفرحه ولكن أن لهم الحمد لله رب العالمين طلعنا لقينا اهلنا واخواننا.
كنا ضربات جانبي هون، فإلي 3 أيام بقدرش أنام، لا على الجنب اليمين ولا جنب الشمال ولا كنت صعوبة، يعني بظني زي هيك قاعد بنام وأنا قاعد، بقدرش أتمدد على ظهري ولا أروح على اليمين ولا الشمال. فالحمد لله رب العالمين.
منقوصة لأنه ترك خلفه إخوان وأصدقاء وأصحاب وأسرى، ووضعهم صعب جدا من ناحية صحية، من ناحية معاملة، ضرب، إهانة، من جميع النواحي صعب. والله يكون في عون شعبنا في غزة. يعني احنا في النهاية بصراحة شو ما صار فينا صراحة لا يقارن باللي بيصير في غزة.
بفرحة عارم، فرحة كبيرة إن الواحد بيلتقي أهله وبيلتقي أحبابه، والحمد لله رب العالمين صفحة وانقبض، ولكن هناك في غصة في القلب، في تركنا إخوة إلنا وأعزاء إلنا، يعني أملنا بالله عز وجل ثم آمنا بإخواننا أن يقوموا.
Now emotional reunions have unfolded today as released Israeli hostages returned home after over 2 years in Hamas's captivity. Published by the Israeli army and the families themselves, the heartwarming videos captured by Israeli Gilboa Dalal, Yusuf Shaim Ohana, and Eitan Abraham Moore and Matan Angrest embracing their loved ones in deeply emotional moments. Gilboa Dalal's mother could be heard repeatedly shouting his name as she hugged him while his family wrapped in an Israeli flag. Yusuf Shaim Ohana's father, tears in his eyes, hugged his son tightly while reciting Jewish prayers and expressing relief, saying, 2 years, 2 years. Eitan Abraham Moore has also shared a similar tearful reunion with his parents, with his father crying as his mother recited a Jewish prayer in gratitude. Meanwhile, Matan Angrest, sitting between his parents on an army helicopter, held up a whiteboard with a message to loved ones praising Israel's soldiers for their role in securing his release. These reunions marked a poignant moment in the aftermath of a U.S. brokered deal aimed at ending the war in Gaza, which saw 20 hostages freed. However, the fate of many others remain uncertain, as 28 hostages, including 26 believed to be dead, are still unaccounted for. In exchange for the hostage release, Israel has agreed to free nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees. Now we stay in this topic. In an address to Israel's parliament in the Knesset, U.S. President Donald Trump declared that the end of the Israel-Hamas war as the historic dawn of a new Middle East, calling the Gaza ceasefire the most challenging breakthrough. President Trump has said the people were dancing in the streets around the world as the long-awaited and difficult war came to an end. He has hailed the release of 20 hostages held by Hamas and said that the region had now endorsed a plan for Gaza's demilitarization and Hamas's disarmament, ensuring Israel's lasting security. He also further stated that Israel had won all it can by force of arms and urged the region to translate battlefield victories into peace and prosperity.
It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that so strongly. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East.
President Trump also made headlines for urging Israeli President Isaac Herzog to pardon Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Let's listen in to what he has said.
I have an idea. Mr. President, why don't you give him a pardon? Give him a pardon. Come on.
In a remark, President Trump even floated the idea of a peace deal with Iran, saying that it would be great if a deal is reached and even Iran wants it. Let's listen in.
They took a big hit, didn't they? Didn't they take a big hit? Boy, oh boy. They got hit from one side, from the other. And you know, it would be great if we could make a peace deal with them. And I think that's big. Would you be happy with that? Wouldn't it be nice, I think? Because I think they want to. I think they're tired.
Now for this discussion, we go back to Mohammed Osman. He's an international relations specialist, joins us live from Cairo. Thank you very much, Osman, for staying with us. Now, looking back at all of this, I want to start from questioning from this, the fact that there's so many of Palestinian prisoners, but only 20 hostages, if you compare the numbers, almost 2,000 Palestinian hostages, prisoners being released. Can you tell us a little bit of background or the history? Why is this difference?
I will answer your question, but I just need to make a quick comment on what my colleague, Mr. Osman, just said, since he decided to give me a lecture on Israeli politics. I thank him for that. I'm very well aware of the genuine fears of Israel with regards to their security concerns. However, it seems he did not listen to what I've said in full, so I would advise him to listen more thoroughly next time if we ever come together on this screen once again. What I said was Israel, of course, is engaging in fear-mongering in order to justify this war. This war is not just about security. It goes way beyond that. It goes way beyond that. And actually, the Trump plan does provide the necessary security guarantees. So this is already something that has been agreed upon, that disarmament of Hamas and their expulsion from Gaza, basically them relinquishing power, I think this is more than enough of a security assurance for the Israelis, in addition, of course, to the massive devastation Israel has inflicted on Gaza and killing over 70,000 people, 80% of them civilians. I think this will buy you the necessary assurances for the next few years as an Israeli decision maker. But of course, we know that what the Israelis are vying for, this current Israeli government in specific, and especially the right-wing elements and the Machiavellian Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, they vie and they seek to accomplish something that is way deeper than that, and that is, again, the dismantlement of the entire Palestinian cause. And this is not something I'm making up. This is something that they have admittedly said openly and publicly, a multitude of Israeli officials, including Prime Minister.
Mohammed, sorry about that, but we will be cutting live to President Donald Trump as he is speaking. Thank you very much for sharing that insight. That was Mohammed Osman.
I think they want to, that's all I do in my life, I make deals. And they want to make a deal.
Now that the living hostages have been returned, can you please tell us what the next steps are?
Well, they're going and looking for bodies. It's a pretty gruesome task, and they know where numerous are, as you know. I guess 5 or 6 are in yet now, but they're looking for bodies. They know the areas, and they search parties out, and they're doing it in conjunction with Israel, and they're going to be finding quite a few of them.
President Trump, can you tell us when phase 2 of the negotiations will begin?
Well, it started. I mean, it started as far as we're concerned. Phase 2 has started. And, you know, the phases are all a little bit mixed in with each other. They're going to start cleaning up. You look at Gaza, and it needs a lot of cleanup. That's why when I talked in my speech, I talked about the debris. I used the word debris. That's debris times 10. So, but they're gonna really do a job. They have a lot of power. In another room, you have the wealthiest, some of the wealthiest nations in the world. All leaders, the big leaders are here. the emirs and the kings and everybody, and it's a very interesting group. I guess we have like 35 countries, and that's only because they were the 35 that we invited. Everybody that we invited came. So it's there's a lot of respect, and I think you'll see some tremendous progress, both in the Middle East. This country is doing very well. It has good leadership. It's about leadership, and it's really nice when you say, "How is your crime situation?" And they don't even know what you're talking about. What do you mean crime? We don't have crime, because if he has crime, he puts it out very quickly. Some people think that's not nice, but I think it's great. Because people don't want to be mugged and smashed, and they don't want to be stupid people. They have a place that is doing very well. We're very proud of him, because we knew each other from the beginning. The first time I met, it was in a hotel, and I was going to meet him, and then Hillary Clinton was following me. Remember? Hillary Clinton. And he liked me so much, he never even got to see Hillary. He saw her for about 2 seconds. But he didn't really want to waste a lot of time. He knew what was going to happen. But that was the first time we met, and we had a very good chemistry together. And it continues till today. So I want to thank you all very much. I appreciate the way you covered this really momentous, I've never seen anything like it. The level of love, the level of respect for what it is, and it's, you know, it's peace in the Middle East, and everybody said it's not possible to do. And it's going to happen, and it is happening as before your very eyes. And that's why it's become so fascinating. Marco, do you have anything to say?
Egypt's been a phenomenal participant. I think both Steve and Jared will tell you the critical role they played, and they can tell you themselves. They hosted the talks here, and they're going to play a very important role now in the follow-up, the implementation of this, which is really, it's not simply about restoring Gaza, it is about transforming the region. So we have an incredible partner, a long alliance, very capable partner here, and a tremendous collection of leaders. This is clearly, in my mind, I think in the mind of everyone in this room, probably one of the most important days for world peace in 50 years. And that's not an exaggeration.
Only 50?
Maybe 100. Certainly since the end of World War II.
Mr. Witkoff and Mr. Kushner, I'm curious, you've played such an important role in the tactical negotiations here. What will your role be going forward as a lot more has to be brought to the table here?
Oh, the minute we had inked the deal, Jared and I were already working on the implementation side of the deal. So we're dug in. We'll be here quite a bit. That's at the direction of the president. That's probably going to be one of the most important phases here. Jared is remarkable to work with. I talk about it all the time. And of course, we both love working for the president. So it's feels like a very honorable job.
Mr. President, would you like to say something with the interpreter?
Yes. اسمحوا لي في البداية أن أنا أرحب بفخامة الرئيس. وأنا سعيد وكل شرف موجودة في مصر. في شرم الشيخ مدينة السلام. يسمح لي فخامة الرئيس أن أنا اسمي واسم كل المصريين ويمكن حتى وكل محب السلام أوجه لك التحية الأخيرة والاحترام على تحية هذا الإنجاز الرائع والعظيم.
Well, first of all, Your Excellency, I welcome you to Egypt. It's a great pleasure and an honor to have you with us here in the city of peace, Sharm el-Sheikh. Allow me also to extend, on behalf of all Egyptians and peace lovers around the world, salute, the appreciation, and respect for this unprecedented and momentous accomplishment by your Highness.
أنا كنت متأكد فخامة الرئيس أنك الوحيد القادر على تحقيق هذا الإنجاز وإنهاء.
I've been very confident that Your Excellency is the only one who is capable of bringing this about and bringing an end to this war.
وأنا في خلال اتصالي بفخامة الرئيس ذكرت له ذلك بدقة. قلت له فخامة الرئيس أنت وحدك القادر على تحقيق السلام في منطقتنا.
I even said that very precisely during my communication with Your Excellency, that you are the only one who is able to bring about peace and to achieve peace in this part.
بشكرك فخامة الرئيس.
I thank you, Mr. President.
ولكن عايزين نستكمل نثبت وقف إطلاق النار ونطلق السراح لكل الرهائن وحتى يعني للاسف الجثث المتبقيه في اسرع وقت عشان تسلم الى ذويهم في اسرائيل، ثم ادخال المساعدات ونستكمل باقي المراحل.
And what we need to do now is to fixate the ceasefire, make sure that it maintains and sustains, that we can deliver all of the bodies of the deceased to the families, and this is very important, to bring in more humanitarian assistance into the strip, and working very closely on following up the rest of the steps that should be taken to make this successful.
Mr. President, you did very great. Thank you.
That's very nice. Thank you.
He's a good man. He's a good man. We're with him all the way.
Will he be on the Board of Peace, sir?
I'd like to have him on the board. I'd like to. We may need an interpreter, but that's okay.
As long as the President, His Excellency,
You can't do better.
the Board of Peace, I'll be there.
We've had many leaders want to be on the board, actually. The Board of Peace, it's taken on, Steve, I'd say a life of its own. Do you want to discuss that? What's happened?
I think we have a long list of applicants to be on that board.
Yes, everybody wants to be. That's very nice. That's better than the other way. Usually it's the other way. Nobody wants to be on the board. But it's really taken on, this whole thing has taken on a life that's very different. So it's been really a great honor. And you people have done a fantastic job, I want to tell you. We appreciate it very much. Thank you very much, everybody.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Hold it 1 second.
Now I would like to thank our guest, John Rosamando and Mohammed Osman, for joining us today and sharing that insight on that topic. This is all we have time for. We will continue